So hello friends, Kuyan here, and today I'm actually pretty excited on this one's video because I'm actually like want to have a journey, a very long journey ahead of me to react everything from geography now, especially from the entire list of the entire country. Hopefully I can still reach it from the end because geography now has been making all of these videos for a very long time. And I would love to like have after every type of geography now, video, I would love to react more about the countries like history and their food and stuff and before like going on for the next nation and stuff and countries. So first we're going to react on Afghanistan. So I was pretty surprised that we are actually starting from this. So yeah, without further ado, friends, hopefully you can subscribe to my YouTube channel so that hopefully I can make more videos like this in the future. So thank you for all your support. So let's get right into the video.
First episode of Geography Now, we're going to go through the list of all the internationally recognized sovereign nations of the world,
Yes.
and we're going to do it alphabetically, which means our first episode is going to be on Afghanistan.
It's time to learn geography
Now! That's the intro song. I hope you liked it. I worked really hard recording it with my friend Bill. So, today's going to be Afghanistan. I'm actually really glad we're getting this country covered because it's a very complex and deep country and we can't cover all of it in 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to do my best. Before we get into anything though,
This is why I'm also wanted to have a deep dive of their history and the food and stuff. Those are actually the two things that I want to react mostly from the country. So yeah.
flag. The Afghani flag is a tricolor band of three different colors, red, black, and green. The red representing the blood of those who fought for Afghanistan, the black representing the obscure and difficult past that they've had, and the green representing hope and a future and Islam as it is the state religion. In the middle of the flag is the Afghani emblem. Now this is where things get a little difficult, so bear with me. On the emblem is a mosque with two little miniature Afghani flags on the side, which by the way makes Afghanistan one of the only two countries in the world that has a flag with miniature versions of its own flag on its own flag. On the side are sheaves of wheat. On the top is the Shahada, or the Muslim creed. On the bottom is the name of Afghanistan, written in Arabic. And on top of that is the Arabic year of 1298, written in Arabic numerals, which also in the standard Gregorian calendar is 1919, which was the year that Afghanistan was relinquished from its British protectorate status and became an internationally recognized sovereign nation known as Afghanistan.
Interesting.
In terms of its political geography, Afghanistan is located in the Central Asian region surrounded by six...
Yeah, it's a pretty recognizable map actually. It's actually also pretty interesting that their flag is pretty complex actually. Like there's a lot of symbols, emblems within it. There's also like a very interesting black, also known as like their troubled historical past. Because in us in the Philippines, it's actually just pretty simple. It's just a sun, a star, a white, blue and red, that's it.
Other countries, technically 7 if you consider the Jammu Kashmir region part of India, but Pakistan will tell you it totally is not, but we'll discuss that in another video. Now when you look at the shape of Afghanistan, it just kind of looks like a big amorphous blob in the middle of nowhere, but then when you look at the northeast, you start to see this long narrow stretch of land that kind of reaches out into the Hindu Kush mountain range. And you might ask yourself, why does Afghanistan have that long panhandle? And the reason why is kind of technically because England and Russia. See, back in the 1800s, the British and the Russians were competing against each other to see who could amass the largest global empire in terms of colonization and influence. Russia took over what are now known as many of the Central Asian countries as Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, while the British took over many of the South Asian regions such as India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Now when it came to Afghanistan, things were a little difficult because the Afghani people really did not want to be taken over. It was also a really crucial point on the map because essentially it was the area where the British and Russian empires got really close to each other. Eventually the British kind of took over at the end of the 19th century, much to the reluctance of the Afghanis. However, they still had to distinguish the borders between Afghanistan and the rest of the other nations in the empire. When it came to Pakistan, or back then British India, the British decided to use the Durand Line, and then when it came to the Russian Empire, they decided to use the Panj and Palmyr rivers. Now the thing is, when both the empires drew these lines, they technically didn't touch each other in the northeast and left a huge, long, narrow buffer zone, which is now today known as the Wakhan Corridor. By default, it was given to Afghanistan, and to this day, the Wakhan Corridor plays a very crucial role in Afghanistan's geography because for a very, very small 20 or so mile border at the very end of the Wakhan Corridor is a border with China. Now I know 20 miles doesn't really sound like much, but in the world of geopolitical analytics, that can be a very important thing.
That is still kind of crazy. Like people fight over like that inch of land when you try to zoom in, and kind of crazy like how much they really try to measure every inch of dirt when it comes to like mapping and like drawing lines of a nation, man. That's crazy.
Now, when it comes to physical geography, Afghanistan has a large, vast array of different kinds of landscapes. However, the large portion of the country is actually mountainous, with the Hindu Kush mountain range dominating the northeast regions and the central regions of the country. In fact, the snowmelt from these mountains accounts for the vast majority of the complex, immense river systems that flow throughout Afghanistan, allowing their country to have lush green valleys where most of their agricultural sector can be found. Now, despite all the rivers and water reservoirs, Afghanistan still remains a relatively dry nation. In fact, the further south you go, closer to the Kandahar region, almost immediately after you pass the Dori River, you hit the Sistan Basin, which is basically what geologists speculate may have actually been a large body of water at some point, but is now a dry, desolate desert wasteland. Nonetheless, with the arable land that it does have, Afghanistan is still able to produce some of the world's best produce, including pomegranates, almonds, apricots, and poppy. That's right, for the past few hundred years, Afghanistan has been a leading nation in opium production.
I always thought it was like India was the first one who made poppy very, pretty common and stuff. I don't know what happened at that time because, India was like part of the opium wars against like China and stuff. It was actually pretty surprising that Afghanistan was like also like massive producers of poppy or opium.
In terms of its demographics, Afghanistan has just about 31 million people, or roughly a little bit smaller than the size of Canada. The slight majority of these people identify as ethnically Pashtun, or people from the Pashtun tribe. They speak the Pashtun language known as Pashto. Now, there are some other ethnic minorities like Uzbeks and Tajiks and Hazaras. However, the interesting thing is that the majority of the people, about 85%, including the Pashtuns, speak Dari. Dari is actually a dialect of the Persian language Farsi. So that means someone who speaks Dari can actually interchangeably travel between Afghanistan and Iran without really having any trouble being understood. Interesting side note, there is one last living Jew living in all of Afghanistan. I'm not even joking. His name is Zablon Simintov. He lives in Kabul. He used to own a restaurant, and he maintains the last synagogue in all of Afghanistan. The locals there know him just as that one Jew guy, and they're cool with him. They're just like, hey Zablon. Which brings us to our final segment, the friend zone.
That's actually pretty crazy because it's pretty scary, because Afghanistan is not really good at their religion and stuff, especially when it comes to like the Taliban to unfortunately take over the majority of Afghanistan and stuff. Friend zone.
Afghanistan has a very interesting way in how it interacts with other countries. Now, because of the whole language thing, Afghanis and Iranians have typically kind of had somewhat of a cultural similarity and resonance with each other. However, they also have had some controversy. Now, Pakistan and India are the biggest business partners of Afghanistan. However, again, there's some drama there as well.
Yeah, even recent like this like news and stuff that I hear too, like Pakistan also like tried to miss out parts of like Afghanistan because they're like rebels that Pakistan don't like, but has been supported by the Taliban and stuff. So, yeah, it's essentially like Pakistan kind of majority support Afghanistan during the American and Afghanistan war. So it's kind of interesting, like how it backfired against them. Like how their support with the Taliban and stuff really just backfire in their own backyard, and like a lot of like extremists, I think it was, like as I've heard, that want to actually take over like Pakistan and stuff. So it's actually pretty interesting.
Now, when it comes to their best friend, Afghanistan considers Turkey their best friend. They've cooperated with each other peacefully for over 100 years, and there's an old Afghani saying, no Afghani was ever killed by a Turkish bullet, and no Afghani trained by a Turk ever betrayed his country. So in conclusion, I guess this is the last segment, never mind. Putting aside all of the modern day controversies, Afghanistan is actually a very beautiful country with a very rich and vibrant, yet often hidden cultural and historical past that very often goes overlooked. And that's our objective.
It's almost like America and stuff when it comes to those like canyons and rivers. Very interesting. They didn't seem to go in depth with the food and stuff. That's always my thing. So I'll probably like try to go in depth in that in the future videos that I will upload.
We want to shine light on the obscure and put on display the often neglected yet fascinating attributes of every region of the world. We hope you did you justice. Stay tuned. Albania is coming next.
Very interesting. I'd actually love to also like see Albania. I'm pretty sure that's part of like the North Africa parts of the countries. I don't know why my mind blank a little bit there, but yeah, friends, that was a very interesting video. Hopefully in the future you can, you can like see me like try to react more Afghanistan based like videos and stuff, because it's actually pretty interesting. Like I always like try to see like how much people are there. There's also like a video about Barbs really visiting Afghanistan after like the Taliban take over and stuff. So I actually pretty interested of like revisiting that too on the video. So yeah, thank you for watching, friends, and yeah, good evening.